Welcome to the 2024 edition of the Marlins Minor League Superpod here on the Fish on First podcast channel. This is Eli Sussman popping in for a very quick intro to give you an idea of what to expect from this conversation. Kevin Barral, Alex Carver had their swimming upstream recording going level by level through the Marlins organization, highlighting notable performers from this past season. Due to the length of the pod, we split it up into two separate parts. Part one that you're about to listen to covers the DSL Marlins, DSL Miami, FCL Marlins, Low A Jupiter, and High A Beloit. On the next part, on the same channel that you're listening to this right now, wherever you get your podcast, you can find part two about Double A Pensacola and Triple A Jacksonville. So here is part one of that conversation. Enjoy.
Alrighty, we are back swimming upstream. It's been a very long time, but it's the second annual minor league super pod. So right now you will be watching the first of, I want to say, a couple episodes of this, just assuming that this will be a very long podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Barral. I'm here with the creator of Swimming Upstream and Mr. Fish on the Farm, Alex Carver. Alex, always good to talk to you, man. We're going through each level today. We're starting with the DSL and we're finishing with AAA. So a lot of names, a lot of storylines, and a lot of things to look forward to in the offseason. And even just, as spring training creeps upon us little by little, a lot of names that we're going to be looking forward to either to bounce back or to continue doing what the hot start they got off to in either their pro career or just how good they may have been, throughout the season.
But no, a rebuilt system for sure. But the names that have been here and the names that are here and the names that have been here for a bit are kind of the names that we're going to delve more into today, because the names that they brought back mostly were at the higher levels that they brought in at the higher levels, at the trade deadline. Of course, we'll talk about those guys as well, but I'm more interested in the lower level guys, the guys that we're going to talk about that are, just starting out, that are just starting their careers, the guys that have, kind of made a name for themselves these last couple of, months, I guess I would say, in the system. I'm really interested in diving into those names with you, Kevin. Those are the names that I'm really stoked about, the names that I'm kind of interested into diving into with you here in the next couple of, I guess, maybe hour to 2 hours. It's going to be fun.
I'm excited. And so as always, make sure to like and subscribe, follow us on fishonfirst.com. This will be on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating, get a nice little comment below, and just let us know how we're doing. Anywhere for minor league baseball, this is a spot, at least for Marlins minor league baseball. And the major league stuff as well, fishonfirst.com. Make sure to go check us out. Make sure to follow Alex Carver and Marlins Minors, giving you all the best content out there. So let's get it going, man. Let's start with the DSL. A couple guys I want to dive into there, starting with catcher Jeremy Almonte, who finished the season actually pretty well. 336, 440, 436 with an 877 OPS, had a home run, 21 RBIs, 143 WRC plus. He caught almost most of his games. Carver, what stands out to you about Mr. Jeremy Almonte? Still a very young player and probably goes to the FCL next year.
Yeah, so Almonte really came on this year. This guy was a guy that was drafted, I think, or selected, I think, as a catcher, if I'm not mistaken. This guy was a 2023 guy that was, I think, selected as a catcher. Really came on this year, repeated the DSL, which, is okay, especially for a young player, but kind of really came on this year, especially with the bat, and the patience as well at the plate. So it's just a few games down there. It's not a ton of games down there that they play. But this guy played most of their short season. He was pretty decent with the bat, especially when it came to gap hitting. I think this guy kind of showed out a little bit. So a 6', 170 catcher at age 19, you like it. You like to see it. But when you're repeating a level, it's like you kind of want to see it happen at higher levels a little bit, sooner, especially for a guy that's already 19. And not to say that there isn't time for this guy to succeed. And there's new names in this organization, and there's more depth in this organization now that he has to compete with. So he made a name for himself this year. I think he's going to compete with a lot of those other guys next season. I think he'll probably come stateside next season, probably be at the FCL, Kevin. But this guy really kind of showed it with the bat. He looked pretty damn good, projectable size and strength. I like Jeremy Almonte. I think that he's decent. I think that he kind of kind of showed it out this year that, over the course of a full season, the 34 games that he played, and it's tough to say that it's a full season, but down there it kind of is, that he could do it, and he could kind of make it matriculate from last season and still kind of adjust to what happened last season down there as well. So pretty good. I was happy with him. He definitely improved down there, but I'm looking forward to seeing him come stateside to see what he does here.
Alrighty, this is your guy, Carver. We're going to start talking about him really early here at the 4-minute mark. Joseph Tailor finished the year hitting 280, 419 with a 531 slug, 951 OPS, 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, a 153 WRC plus. But I'm gonna get you with that one. 23 hit by pitches, something you don't really see, at least in the DSL. I'm sorry, but I'll let you talk about him. He was the DSL Player of the Year. So you got to give him credit where credit is due. He had a nice year. I'm assuming he's coming stateside, and we'll see if that keeps going at least. So I'll let you take as long as you want on Joseph Tailor. I don't think you've spoken about him on many podcasts or even spaces. So now's your time to shine.
Yeah, so I really liked what I saw from Tailor. I mean, this is a guy that came out, and again, it's another guy that repeated a level. I totally understand that it's a guy that repeated the level. But when you lead the organization in WRC plus, that opens eyes, right? And this guy, amongst all qualified players, led the organization in WRC plus. So that opens your eyes a little bit to what this guy could potentially do in the future. I'm not saying that he is going to be a star player. I'm not saying that I'm overreacting to what he's done so far, but what I am saying is that opens your eyes. And I thought he should have been ranked in our top 30. It didn't happen, which is okay. You guys didn't agree, so that's okay. But I think that this guy, when he comes stateside next season, will show what he can do if he matriculates for what he did this year. What I would say for him is, the walk rate was decent, but for a guy repeating a level, you may want to see that rise a little bit more. I think the walk rate could be a little bit better. So other than that, other than the walk rate, I really don't think that this guy did anything wrong or anything to hurt himself. I think he only did things to improve. Improved defensively as well at second base. We've talked to people that say that this guy really made a name for himself at second base, which is great. That is awesome to see that he is starting to find a position, because before he was kind of positionless. And then the bat just kind of kept going, man. He improved with the bat. He improved defensively. He took all the steps he needed to take to prove himself. And I think he's going to come stateside next season and be pretty damn good. So I think we'll be talking more about Joseph Tailor in the future, personally.
I hope he proves us wrong. Right now, he's an honorable mention in our Fish on First top 30. Carver, let's talk a little bit FCL as well, where we're probably just going to dive into those two levels to begin with. This is a guy who didn't play for the Marlins at the FCL level, but I think it's worth talking about a little bit. Abrahan Ramírez, who was one of the players acquired in the Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade. I don't think we've really spoken about him too much, but hit 348, 447, and had a 959 OPS with the Yankees at their FCL level, with 2 home runs, 24 RBIs, and a 161 WRC plus. A little bit lucky with a 417 BABIP. Did not see any action at shortstop. A lot of it was at third base, second base. I think he DH'd a little bit. Didn't see any time with FCL Marlins. I'm assuming that he obviously probably went into that postseason camp. I know they had a camp at Lone Depot Park as well. Probably went to the DR. I know they're doing a lot of training over there as well. So this is a guy who's kind of a hit or miss. He's 20 years old, so still a long way to go. But, I mean, at least from what we've seen on the Yankees side of things, and the organization also seems to like it. We've heard a lot of good things about him from the internal side of things. So definitely a name that stands out, and I think we'll be definitely keeping an eye out at least during spring training.
Yeah, so lefty hitting, righty throwing second baseman at age 20, came stateside with the Yankees. Didn't see him with the Marlins, as you said, Kevin. Didn't see him play with the Marlins, but also a guy that repeated repeated the DSL in 2022 and 2023 before becoming stateside. So it kind of just shows that, that doesn't mean everything that a guy just repeats the DSL and then can't turn into anything. This guy can definitely be something. He could definitely be good. Sweet stroke from the left side, man. I like what I've seen from the films on this guy. We haven't seen him, in person or with the Marlins, and we haven't really gotten to know what the organization thinks of him because we haven't seen him hit yet here. But yeah, a guy that will definitely be stateside next year. I'm guessing he'll probably be a Jupiter guy, probably be their main guy at second base on the infield. So we'll see what happens with him. I'm looking forward to seeing him report, but you like what you've seen so far. The films on him are very good. I really like his swing from the left side. It looks really good for him at age 20. Maybe it's a guy that you would think that they would move quickly, especially if he continues to succeed. But first, you got to kind of see what he does over the course of a full season. So we'll see what he does, likely see what he does over the course of a full season next year.
Let's talk a little bit about Andrés Valor. He was the FCL Player of the Year. Really good numbers with 289 batting average, 796 OPS with 2 home runs, 28 RBIs, and a 119 WRC plus. I would say the thing with him, it would be just to get a little bit of more power. I think that would be something that would benefit him a lot. Only 2 home runs. I think, from what we've been hearing about him, definitely seems like he's gotten a lot stronger. So maybe we'll see some more game power from him. Again, he was the FCL MVP. I think he'll stick in center field, Carver. I mean, I think he has the athleticism to do it. He's a very athletic guy. Wouldn't be the worst thing either if he goes to a right field or a left field spot, a corner outfield. And then I think the other thing would be just lowering the strikeout rate is 25%. But still, I mean, this is a guy who we have, I think, in our top 10, top 15 in our top 30. And this is a guy who the organization really likes. Should have been challenged, in my opinion, to low A. Wasn't challenged, but I think he'll start the season with Jupiter and with honestly a potential to go to Beloit if he really rakes over there.
Yeah, no, you called it. I mean, this guy should have been challenged, I think, at the end of the year to go to Jupiter to finish the year out. The Marlins decided not to do it, but that's okay. First year stateside, maybe they just wanted to keep it in, to where he was and, end the year on a really good note for him. 289, 374, 421, 119 WRC plus, which is above average. Did everything that he needed to in his first year stateside, age 18 season. He's going to turn 19 in November. So he'll be 19 all of next season. This guy is so far ahead, so good. Will stick in center field, as I agree with you as well. Organization speaks very highly. I think this guy is going to, once he gets to the full season levels and proves that he can do it again for a full season, which I think that he will. I think his stamina held up very well in the FCL. He was out there in the sun every single day pretty much. I think this guy will be a very, very, very good player for the Marlins. What you want to see come up is the strength and game power, just like you said as well. Game power probably right now only very, very nascent. I would say that should probably come up as he builds strength and size. So that's what you want to see is that this guy puts on muscle mass. He has the height, just needs to put on the weight. Is kind of what you want to see. So you really want to see the physical projection. As long as that's there, I think this guy will be very, very good. One of my favorite prospects in the organization. I think this guy is going to be a very, very good player for the Marlins for a long time.
Definitely agree with you there. Next guy I want to talk about is Luis Cova. Got off to a very slow start, but the speed really helps. I mean, when he finished the year with 36 stolen bases between both DSL teams, he kind of flip-flopped there at the end. So the overall numbers between both teams was a 239 batting average, 376 on base, 348 slug, and then a 723 OPS. Extremely fast. I think there's a chance he sticks at center field, Carver. I know the initial talk was that maybe he probably wouldn't stick there, but I see a world maybe where he does it with how quick he is. Maybe that helps a little bit. We could also, I think he needs to hit for more contact, and the plate discipline is something else that really stood out to me. This is a guy who struck out under 10% with both DSL affiliates and really walked at a high clip, a 20% rate on one team, and I believe about 15% with the other. So this is a guy who really works the count, is really, really, really patient, and you don't see that with a 19, 18-year-old prospect. Especially this early in their career, you're usually going to see, and we'll talk about a prospect that really has a high strikeout percentage early on in Carter Johnson real soon here, with Cova, who really doesn't strike out much, and that's something that you don't see in a prospect this young.
Yeah, what you really like is the fact that he got better as the season went along. In June, he was kind of breaking in, didn't really hit that much, especially for average. OBP was there, slugging percentage not there really at all. And then in the month of July, he just kind of took off. So you kind of like that he adjusted to what was in front of him, right? And got better kind of as the season went along. So I really like the fact that especially in the month of July, he was very, very, very good. With the bat, especially on fields that are not the easiest to hit on, even though the competition is younger, of course, and nascent, like I said before. You like the fact that this guy adjusted in his first pro season. You like the fact that this guy kind of adjusted to the competition level, which is great to see. If he can continue to adjust to competition levels, I don't see a reason why this guy can't be a very damn good prospect, especially only at age 17. He'll turn 18 in February. So it's definitely a very, very young player. He will be 18 turning into adulthood in February. And he was very good in his first pro season, especially with the fact, like I said, that he adjusted to the competition level as the season went along. So I like Cova. I think he's good. I definitely think he's deserving of the ranking that we've given him in the top 30. 6'1", 160. So size and projection is there as well for this guy, just like Valor. So I think he's damn good. Maybe more fit for the corners than center field, I think, but we'll see what he can do in terms of his outfield projection. I think he's probably going to be a corner player, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens with him. Maybe he can, pick up some more speed. But I think that the size projection a little bit bigger than Valor, and definitely not as fast. So I think he's more of a corner guy. But we'll see what happens with his positional flex as he goes along. But other than that, the bat was pretty damn good, especially as the season went along. So I'm intrigued by Cova, and we'll see what he does next season. Maybe come stateside. I would hope that he would come stateside. I think that he probably will.
Alrighty. Only pitcher we'll touch on, at least with the FCL and DSL, is Luifer Romero. I'm going to keep this one short because this is his third year into DSL, but the numbers were good. A 2.43 ERA with a 10.5 K per nine, 3.8 walk per nine through 33 and third innings pitched. Started 8 games, pitching a total of 13. Carver, I think we'll keep that one short. I think we just need to see more of it in stateside. Definitely a guy who stood out to me, at least just when I was doing some research on some names to talk about. And I think it was worth noting him really quickly.
Yeah, definitely worth noting, but a guy that's been in the DSL for 3 years. So when is he going to get pushed? When is the organization going to say that, okay, we believe in you enough to push you up to the big league or, stateside levels, not big league, but like stateside levels? When is the organization going to see that? Why has he been there so long? So that's kind of stands out to me as like, why has he been there so long? We don't get a ton of reports. We get some reports, but not a ton of reports out of those levels. He did win an award in minor league awards, so that was good for him. 39-14 KBB. So, it's just, I don't know. I like you said, we have to see more. It's relief. Well, he did start 8 games out of 13, but it's also kind of maybe a swing guy. They look for guys to start there on some certain situations that, they push guys up and push guys down between level to level in the DSL. So just because this guy only started 8 games doesn't mean that he's not a starter, but a lot of his starts were less innings, right? But they have more guys to give time to as well. So again, all things together, they have to get a lot of guys time at those levels, especially between 2 teams. They go up and they go down. Some games get rained out. There's a lot of things that happen in that league. So for him to start 8 out of 13 games, I think they see him as a starter. We'll see what happens. I just think we have to see a little bit more from him before we decide that, okay, this guy's a standout. But, it wasn't terrible this year. I think it was pretty good this year, but again, it's his 3rd year at that level. So we need to see him come stateside pretty much.
All right, let's go to low A Jupiter. Talk about the Jupiter Hammerheads. I think it was a very pitcher heavy in terms of talk that we're going to have here. First guy I want to talk about is Juan Cruz. Started the year in the FCL, finished it off in Jupiter between both levels at a 2.6 ERA, 8.4 K per nine, a 4.9 walk per nine, and 62 innings pitched. Finished the year at low A. Fastball between 94 and 95. I love the secondary stuff, and I believe he'll start at the low A level. Carver, this is your guy. This is our guy. We love this guy. I don't think there's much more we could say about him, but really, really good stuff. He was neck and neck with Noble during spring training, and that scrimmage that we were watching there. I mean, it was a lot of fun stuff there in spring training, and then obviously we were able to be there live for his FCL starting the playoffs against the Detroit Tigers. So. Talk to us a little bit about Juan Cruz, the secondary stuff, and just, his overall season, where to expect him to start in 25.
Yeah, this is another guy I thought they should have pushed up to Jupiter. He was already there last year, so I didn't really understand why they wouldn't have given him time at Jupiter this year, but he did spend all year at the FCL. I don't know if he was working on certain things or whatever it may be, but he looked really good at that level. You called out the stats, so they speak for themselves. That playoff game that he pitched against the Tigers was very good. I think he went scoreless innings. I think it was like 5 scoreless that he went, which was very good. Hammer breaking pitch, which is very good. Starting to mix in more of a changeup. Velo's there. I think he's around 93, 94, but could climb a little bit higher. I think he will as he gets more physical projection as well, or comes by more physical projection. So I think that guy is a player that the Marlins are very excited about. I just think that he should have been challenged a little bit more this past year. I think he should have been with Jupiter for at least part of the year. There was room for him there. I didn't really get why he wasn't there, but I think that he will be there and possibly even with Beloit next season. That guy is going to be good.
Totally agree there. All right, Kiner Benitez, a guy who the organization loves a lot, promoted very early on this season, and the numbers with Jupiter speak for themselves: a 3.1 ERA, a 4.1 FIP, 9 K per 9, a 4 walk per 9, went in 57 and 2/3 innings pitched. Fastballs in the mid 90s, a really nice changeup, and the starter traits are there. Good chance he sticks there, Carver. I don't think there's much more to say about Kiner. They really like him. I think there's a really good chance that I think he'll start the season at low A, but I wouldn't be shocked if he starts at Beloit. I mean, this organization's been pushing a lot of guys recently, being very aggressive, and Kiner already spent a lot of time there. So who knows? Maybe he starts the year at Beloit.
Yeah, walks climbed up a little bit with Jupiter. The walk rate was a little bit up. I think that's the only thing that really hurt him, but it's good velo. It's good stuff. I definitely think he has 2 advanced pitches with the makings of a third. So I think that this guy is decent. I think that he is pretty good. I think that he will possibly go up. Yeah, I think I probably agree. I mean, he's only 18, so there's no real rush to push him up to Beloit, but I think that he may start with Jupiter and possibly go to Beloit later in the season. But he's advanced for the age. I mean, he's only 18, and he's already proving that it could be pretty damn good at the full season level. So I think he may start with Jupiter and may go up to Beloit later in the season. But we'll see what they decide to do. But no, intriguing. He limited runs very well. But I think maybe the environment maybe helped him a little bit in Jupiter. That environment is very pitcher friendly. I want to see more of this guy at different levels. So I hope he makes it up to Beloit at some point in 2025. I think that's probably in the cards for him. But decent. I just think that the walk rate climbing up is my only reservation. And maybe just building on that third pitch a little bit more. We know he has a good fastball, decent slider. He needs to build the third pitch a little bit more. So, I don't think that there's a reason why this guy can't be a mid to back end rotation piece in upcoming seasons.
Eliazar Dishmey is a guy who really struggled in the second half of the season, Carver, but still, I mean, mid to high 90s, has the secondary stuff, just got hit really, really hard. And it's concerning because we were just talking about a pitcher-friendly environment. And, I mean, he did not make it seem like that whatsoever. I personally think maybe not a starter. I think wouldn't hurt to see him maybe in a long relief role or even a reliever. You could even see that velo go up a little bit, maybe changing that arm slot, something we've seen with a couple guys before. But I don't know. We lowered him in our prospect rankings ourselves. A couple of us are a little bit lower than we were on him last time we ranked him. So just where do you stand on Dishmey? Wouldn't be shocked if he repeats the level, and maybe if he gets it going, that's when they kind of bump him up to Beloit. But I mean, a lot of struggles in that second half. The numbers look a little skewed even after that, just because of his great first half gets ruined by that second half.
Yeah, so it's not really tracked at the minor league level, but just going based off of what you see, what I kind of saw from him is a lot of reliability on the fastball, which his fastball is really good. It's really fast. It's like 97, 96, 97, which is very good. But I think he really relied on that pitch a lot. And I think when he got into strenuous situations, he kind of tried to overdo it to kind of try to get back into counts. So I think it's a little bit of immaturity, honestly, to this pitcher, which is understandable. At his age, especially, he's 19, so it's understandable that he's a little bit immature. So I think there's a little bit of immaturity that he needs to kind of get over. He relied on the fastball way too much. He needs to be able to rely on the breaking pitches. So whether that's confidence or whether that's just, mentally maturing, whatever the reason may be, I think that's kind of his crux right now, is just kind of getting over being behind in counts or being behind in a game or whatever it may be. It's just kind of getting over it. We haven't talked about Noble Meyer. I'm sure we will, but I think it's the same thing for him. It's just kind of getting used to failure, right? So I think it's a similar situation. I think it's a lot of mental. This guy has good stuff, really good stuff, especially the fastball. But I think he kind of relied on it a little bit too much and tried to overthrow at times, is what I mean to say. So overthrowing is something you need to get over. It's something young players go through. I think this guy tried to overthrow a little bit at times. I don't think we should be out on him. I think he's still good, but he needs to mentally mature a little bit in order to be better.
Walin Castillo spent a lot of time between the FCL and low A, but overall ended the year between both levels of the 3.5 ERA. I don't think he's a starter, Carver. I think he's going to be more of a long reliever type guy, maybe a swing man. I think that's a role that he would really thrive in. I like the swing and miss stuff. Probably starts at low A. He's going to be 20 years old when the year starts. Just we saw him at the FCL. We were pretty not blown away by any means, but definitely impressed. He looked good, and then gets up to low A. He struggled a little bit there, but I think just in due time with more reps at the level, he should be just fine. And I think the mid fastball and that swing and miss stuff really, really will help him at least be that kind of swing man type player.
Yeah, this is a guy with little room for error. So you saw him go up to the full season levels and kind of struggle a bit, I would say. And the reason for that is because he doesn't throw very hard, honestly. It's not a very hard thrower. It's a guy that lives more like low 90s to mid, like you said. Mid is probably where he tops. But his breaking pitch of curveball is really good. He also mixes in a decent changeup. I think he needs more projection on that pitch. I think he needs to improve on that third pitch a little bit more. But his breaking pitch is definitely his best pitch. That's the pitch he throws most often. It's an out pitch. It's very good. He can kind of get guys fooled in the out of the zone with that pitch as well. At least at the FCL. Didn't really see it kind of matriculate up to Jupiter a little bit, but not that much. I just think it's a guy that may be more suited for a swingman role, like you said, or possibly bullpen. So still a bit to like, still not bad. Still just 19. There's still time. But I just think there's less. We talked about physical maturity and physical projectability. I don't think this guy really has it. So I don't really see a ton of room for him to grow into a fastball dependent pitcher. I don't think it's the guy that he really is. I think this is more of a change of pace pitcher. So that kind of puts him more in the bullpen to swingman role, like you said. So I think it's fair to say that I don't think this guy's a starter long-term, but he could still be okay in terms of being major league usable in terms of those roles of change of pace guy with lower velo stuff. You go from a Sandy or Yuri to this guy and he's throwing, low 70s curveballs. That's a change of pace for hitters to kind of try to get used to. So for 1 to 2 innings to maybe 3 innings, he could be okay. So I think Walin is an intriguing pitcher. I think he has a lot of question marks around him when it comes to, he has to be perfect to be very good. He has to be commanding pretty much perfectly to be good. Kind of like a Luis Palacios, which we may talk about. It's the same kind of guy. So I think this is more of a swing man than a starter, but intriguing so far. See how he continues to do at the full season levels.
Next guy I want to talk about is Jake Brooks, who did finish the year at high A, but he only made one start, so I think it's just worth throwing him into the low A conversation. Finished with a 2.28 ERA, 3.63 FIP, 6.67 K per nine, low walk per nine, and 114 and 2/3 innings pitched. He's a 20. I think it needs to be noted he's 23 pitching in low A, so definitely he was. Guys may have been a little bit overmatched, but overall, it was good stuff. It was good swing and miss. The velo, obviously, it's low 90s. Really, I don't even think it'll top out too much at mid 90s. But I think at low A, it was. I think it was too long. Maybe he spent there. Definitely should have been. They should have been a little bit more aggressive with him, in my opinion. But I think we'll get a better picture of what Jake Brooks is in 2025 when he's with Beloit, and who knows? We saw someone like an Ike Buxton kind of shove last year, and I'm not going to compare him to him, but it was kind of the same stuff. Little mid to low 90s, sometimes mid 90s, and good swing and miss stuff. And Ike Buxton got crushed, this year. Just unfortunately, no other way to say it.
Yeah, you called everything that I would say. Way too long at low A. I have no idea why that guy was at low A so long. What I would say though is the one reason that I can give them is that it's just not a lot of eye-popping stuff, right? It's good command and control, but there's not a lot in the way of stuff for this pitcher. So I do think he spent way too long at the low A level. I think he should have been pushed up probably mid-season. They had room, so I don't really understand why they didn't do it. I know they called up, other guys like Nolan Thomas. I know they called up the top guys. I get it, but there was definitely room for this guy at the back end of that rotation, and they just didn't do it. So I don't know why he was held back. That's maybe a question we could ask. I don't really understand why he was held back. He only spent 5 innings at the end of the season at
one start. He made one start.
Yeah. Literally one start. He allowed 2 hits. Made 1 start, 6 strikeouts, no walks. So that if you take that start for a grain of salt, obviously, but probably going to start back there at age 23. Hopefully he continues to succeed. and they can push him up maybe to AA later in the year. Hopefully they decide to challenge this guy at some point. We all know about the AA level. They really struggled this year in terms of prospect depth, in terms of top guys. So I think there's definitely room there for him to go. So maybe they skip him past the single A advanced level and just put him in AA to start the year. I think that would kind of make up for some time for this pitcher. I don't really think he has anything left to prove at the low A levels, other than the fact that it's just okay stuff. This stuff, it's decent stuff. It's not bad, but his best tool is command and control.
All righty, I want to go to a couple of position players. I know he didn't play too much, but I think it's just worth noting. Dillon Head was with the Marlins this year. He did play a couple of games in low A. Unfortunately, due to a hip injury and then surgery, he missed the remainder of the season. Will be ready for spring training. But Carver, this is a guy who we for a very long time thought he was a good prospect. We knew he was good. He was the main piece of the Luis Raj trade, but we felt like there were other guys ahead of him. I know our colleagues, Isaac Azudi, at least, because we know Eli agrees with us, that Victor Mesa Jr. for a very long time was the top position player prospect. And I mean, I know we ended up making that change in the top 30, but I still believe Victor Mesa Jr. is the top guy over Dillon Head. Not top position player prospect. Definitely he should be over Dillon Head, but Dillon Head has the speed. He will stick in center field, and he has some pretty underrated power. Nice bat to ball. Now it's just a matter of will he lower the strikeout rates? Will he maybe work some more walks? But who knows what this injury will ensue for him after. We know that there could be a chance that he's not as fast maybe as he was once before, but where do you stand with Dillon Head right now? I think this is still a pretty good prospect for the most part. Maybe he blows us away and he ends up, at least in our eyes, surpassing a Victor Mesa Jr., but we'll definitely be talking about VMJ soon as well. So we'll get to that comparison in a bit.
Just got to see him play. And I think these players are so similar, honestly. They're both lefty hitters. They're both center fielders. They both will stick in center field. I think that these are guys that are heads at a similar place that Victor was at the last point in his career. I just think they're very, very similar players. You would hope that, Head comes back healthy and this hip injury doesn't bother him for the long term. We just got to see him play, really. Outstanding speed, will stick in center field, good center field defense, same as Victor Jr. These are very similar players. They have very similar skill sets in both Head and Dillon Head and Victor Mesa Jr., I guess I should say, that are basic guys or gap-to-gap guys, less than power guys. I don't think either one of these guys is ever going to hit 20 home runs, probably ever, I don't think, unless they come by a lot more size. But they are guys that are very athletic. They are guys that will stick in center field. They're guys that will hit for a good average. They should walk a decent amount. We haven't really seen that from VMJ yet, or really Dillon Head yet, but I think that their progressions up the minor league ladder have kind of had to do with that. I think that their bat to ball skills will speak for themselves. They'll be able to foul off tough pitches. They'll be able to walk a decent amount. I think that these players are both very, very good. We just got to see him play more. Honestly, VMJ has been injured. Dillon Head's been injured. We got to see him play more. They just got to stay healthy.
And we'll definitely talk about VMJ in a bit, but just to wrap up low A, let's go into Carter Johnson. He was the Marlins' second round pick. Definitely struggled, but again, 18 years old in low A. He was overmatched. There's just no other way to put it. Surprised he started the year. His pro career at low A. Would have thought they would just keep him at the FCL. But he ended up with a 33% strikeout. Didn't really walk too much, just overmatched. 221 batting average, 561 OPS, 16 RBIs, a 65 WRC plus. I'm really not leaning one way or another. Yeah, I'm kind of just still stood, kind of in the middle here with Carter. I don't think he'll stick at short. I think he'll be more of a second base. I know you weren't a big fan of what you saw early on, but again, just in my opinion, 18 at the low A level, and still a long way to go for this guy. And I think he'll be solid, but for now, definitely not concerning, but definitely kind of what you expect to see from him.
Yeah, it's not a worry. I guess it's easy to look at the stats and say what happened, right? What I would say though is that the swing. He was lauded for his bat to ball skills coming out of college, right? He was really lauded for, hey, this guy has really good, or high school. Sorry, this guy has really good bat to ball skills. That's his best strength, is that he knows what swing decisions to make. But again, like you said, this is a guy that's going from playing at high school to playing at a full season level because the FCL schedule was what it was, where they pushed it back. And then after the draft, there's only a couple weeks left. So they have to make decisions, right? They have to decide where to put guys. It was tough. And I really like the rescheduling of the FCL kind of forced the organization's hand a little bit. So they figured this guy may be ready to face off against big league pitch or pro pitching. Turns out that he struggled against it, but now he knows what he needs to do in the future to succeed. So it was more of experience versus anything else for this guy. I wouldn't look at the 40 strikeouts and say, oh my God, this guy's never going to be good. I would look at that and say, okay, this guy now knows how to fail, right? And we talk about that with high school players all the time. They have to learn how to fail. This guy now knows how to fail, and he knows what he needs to do to get better. So if his mental capacity is there, he will use his experience with Jupiter to become better next season. And I think that he will. I think he is mentally good. So the mental game is just as much a part of this as the physical game, the on-field game. The mental side of it is even more so a thing for high school players. I think this guy has it mentally, though. I think he has it between the ears. I think he's going to be good. I am not that worried about what he did with Jupiter.
I want to talk. Let's move to the high level, and I think the first guy we need to talk about is one that you just wrote an article about, and I think by the time this is out, it'll be on fishonfirst.com. Ryan Ignoffo. He was the low A player of the year. He dominated. There's no other way to say it. And I think it needs to be noted. He went from an infield to catching position, a transition that honestly is not very easy to make. And he kind of made it seem pretty flawless. Obviously, still some work to do back there, but he caught Noble Meyer, Thomas White. I mean, he looked really good. Hit over 300 at low A, at high A. And honestly, I could definitely see him starting at double A really soon, Carver. What were your initial takeaways on Ignoffo? I know this is a guy you are extremely high on.
Yeah, and there's so many doubts about this guy. It's just like, where does he play? I mean, coming out of college, he's a two-way player. Like, where do you put him? The Marlins drafted him as a two-way player, so they didn't even really know what they wanted to do with this guy. They had no idea. They didn't know where to put him. They drafted him. If you look at his draft log, it says TWP, which is two-way player. They didn't even know what they wanted to do. So Rachel Balkovich gets a hold of him and makes him a catcher. One of the few positions that he's never played before, ever. But they saw it in him. And she saw the mental capacity. I'll point to that again. She pointed to that herself. It's in the article that he had the mental capacity to do it at a position of need for the Marlins. The Marlins need catchers. They don't have a lot. We know that. They saw the capacity in this guy to put him at catcher, to be able, to put him there and him not to struggle with the bat. And he didn't struggle with the bat, not against low A stuff at least, and not even against Beloit. Like he really didn't. He was very good with the bat. He learned how to play catcher pretty much on the fly. He started in spring training. Outside of a couple of bullpens, and I think he's at high school. That was the only time that he had ever caught before. I saw him wearing catcher's gear first day of spring training. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, they want me to catch. I was like, we'll see how this goes. He opened a lot of eyes doing that. It's a prospect that nobody was talking about. It's a prospect that people are now talking about for a good reason. His bat was very good. Of course, yes, he did it at low levels, so we do need to see it at higher levels. It still happened at Beloit. But all of this happened as he was learning how to play a very strenuous position, learning how to show up earlier to games, learning how to basically become a coach for your pitchers. And he did all of that. Like you said, he caught high velo stuff. He caught Thomas White. He caught Noble Meyer. He caught high velo guys. Dishmey. You can point to the guys that he caught with Jupiter, right? This guy caught high velo. He did well with breaking stuff. He called his pitchers well. He knew what to say on the mound to pitchers that were going through it. It's a guy that's very mature. He's awesome. I can't say enough about Ignoffo. I know it's a player that not a lot of people are talking about. People should be talking about Ignoffo, and I hope to see him at the AA level very soon.
He's been sticking at towards the bottom of our list. Unfortunately, can't move him too much higher, just given the names that are on top of him. But that's a good case to have, and that's honestly something that, when you look at the whole system, it's something good and how improved it is. But next name we need to talk about is our top prospect in the Marlins system, Alex, which is Thomas White, who had a 2.6 ERA with high A, 3.1 ERA with Jupiter. But overall, this guy was dominant. Didn't go over 5 innings. I think that'll kind of change going into next year. I think he'll start at AA, in my opinion. I think he's done more than enough to prove himself at the low levels. Time to see what he could do up there. Unfortunately, don't think he'll go up with his buddy Noble, but a lot of good stuff, man. The fastball in the mid to high 90s, the changeup, everything. I mean, this guy is the real deal. He stands at, I believe, 6 foot. He is 6'5", 210 pounds. Very projectable dude. I mean, this is going to be a really, really, really good prospect, and I think he's shown it early on.
And I think before long, I think you'll see this guy. I'm honestly thinking that he could contribute to the Marlins in 2026. Honestly, that's how far advanced that this player is. We talk about mental maturity. I keep pointing to that, but we're talking about mental maturity. This guy has the best mental maturity of anybody in the system at such a young age. Building size and strength. We talked to him at the award ceremony. Putting on more weight, right? And more weight means more to get behind, right? Even more velocity than he's already throwing with. Right now, he's sitting like mid-90s, can kind of pump it up a little bit higher. This guy could potentially, before long, sit even higher than that. So you talk about that on top of that hammer, slurvy, slider / curveball thing that he has. And then he's talking about adding another pitch. He wants to add a cutter. So he even wants to get even better and expand the arsenal even more outside of those 3 great pitches that he has. Can't say enough about Thomas White. Mentally mature, dealt with failure very well, knew how to get past it, got pushed up the levels, and did well with it at Beloit. So good. Can't say enough about Thomas White. We're going to see him at AA in 2025.
100% agree there. Noble Meyer, he was the number 1 pick in that draft, actually. He ended the season at high A with his buddy Thomas. In low A, he looked pretty good. Still some issues, a 6 walk per 9, but a 2.6 ERA, maybe a little bit lucky, a 4 FIP, and then we kind of saw that all bleed into high A, where he ended the season with a 5.1 ERA, 6.1 FIP, a 7.20 walks per 9. The strikeouts kind of lowered itself. You kind of talk about maturity, and I'll let you dive into that a little bit more. I think that's the case of someone who needs more maturity, someone who maybe just hasn't learned how to deal with failure yet. And this is a guy who really had no bumps in the road up until maybe the start of his pro career. And we saw that a little bit during spring training, maybe just the way he spoke after some press conferences that we did, some scrums, I'm sorry. So, yeah, I mean, this is a guy who still has a long way to go, just 19 years old. He's literally a day older than me, I'm sorry. So, I mean, he has a long way to go, but he still showed a lot of stuff, man. The mid to high 90s is there. I like the secondary stuff. The slide is still good. The elevated fastball, I love what he's shown there. So, I mean, it's not all negatives for Noble. There's definitely some positives, and I think this is still going to be a really good pitcher in the Marlins system.
Yeah, you called it pretty much. I mean, he learned how to command from very early on this year. He learned how to command more of the zone. I just think as the season wore on, like you said, the mental maturity, and we keep pointing to that, but it's important. The mental maturity kind of lagged behind for him. Especially if you compare him to other players. Maybe that's a lot of people compare him to Thomas White. If you compare those two, Noble lags behind in terms of mental maturity. He gets visibly frustrated on the mound. When he's behind in counts, it's a little bit in terms of trying to do a little bit too much. We talked about that with some of the lower level guys just a little bit ago. But yeah, I think this guy needs to just stay within himself a little bit better. He needs the mental maturity on his side a little bit more. We know he has the stuff. We know he has the command. He showed it when the pressure was off. Now he needs to show it when the games matter, right? He needs to show it in terms of when the bases are loaded and there's one out, you need to be able to stay within yourself, right? With runners on base, he really struggled. You can kind of look at that. The stats, the advanced stats, and see that with runners on, he kind of struggled. He let that kind of get to him a little bit. So it needs to be a little bit better in terms of those variables. Dealing with the pitch clock, that goes into it as well. You have to get ready. You have to get on the mound a little bit earlier than you did in high school, right? That's part of it. So, that's it all goes into it, right? You can't slow the game down as much as you used to in high school because now there's a pitch clock. It's all goes into it, right? So he's learning. He's definitely going to be good. I think he will be good. I don't think there's any reason for anybody to be panicking about Noble Meyer. This is a guy that needs to be coached. So the Marlins now have a lot of player development pieces in place that will be able to help him. I think he will be a true testament to what the Marlins are trying to do with player development will be what happens with Noble Meyer.
100%. Next guy I want to talk about is Emmett Olson. He got off to an awesome start in low A. Obviously a little older for that level, but still really good stuff. Literally a 0 ERA, a 1.93 FIP, then goes to high A, kind of does a little bit of the same, gives up a little bit more damage, Carver, but still, I mean, a 3.7 ERA, 3.8 FIP, 3.2 walks per 9. Not a big strikeout dominant pitcher, more inducing ground balls, low walk rates, and that's kind of what he showed. And I think he's a solid guy. I think he's a back end of the rotation piece at some point. Wouldn't be shocked if he starts at AA to begin the season. He's really good, and he's definitely showed some nice signs overall.
Yeah, good sizable lefty. You love to see that. A lefty that can kind of change eye levels. He's got a good breaking pitch. I like him. And like you said, a good ground ball guy. Not too much in terms of dominant stuff, in terms of some other guys that we've talked about. 22 years old, so he's right there at the age average level for high A, so it's fine. I think you may see him at double A at some point next season, maybe in the second half, if he continues to limit damage. It's a guy that needs to kind of be more on the side of, like you said, commanding the lower half, getting those ground balls. It's kind of a guy like that rather than the swing and miss guy. But he gets some swing and miss too. It's not that he doesn't get strikeouts. It's just that he, especially when he probably comes to the higher levels, is going to be a guy that's a 2-contact pitcher more than anything else from what we've seen so far. So that's what I would say for Emmett. A sizable lefty who changes eye levels really well, pitches from a higher arm slot, kind of just gets guys off balance. It's decent, but I agree with you. The ceiling should be mid to back end rotation. I don't see a reason why not. He dealt with the full season of innings pretty damn well. I don't think he fell off really at all from 2023. I think he dealt with 21 starts at a pretty damn good pace. So I don't see a reason why this guy, if he stays healthy, which he did this year, can't be a mid to back end guy that can eat some innings. I think he's pretty decent.
I want to touch on Wilfredo Lara, who was acquired in the Huáscar Brazoban trade, and he was pretty dang good when he got here. A 278 batting average, still did not get on base too much, a 305 OBP, but I mean, he has a 114 WRC plus, a 761 OPS, 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, 20% strikeout. Still needs to work a little bit on just getting some walks, putting the ball in play a little more, but overall, Carver, I mean, a guy who we had kind of low expectations for when they acquired him. It was just kind of you got a prospect back for Huáscar Brazoban, who got to the Marlins very late into the season and didn't get too many innings in there. But, overall, a solid prospect. Yeah, I don't see him sticking at short. I think he'll be more of a third baseman, maybe a left fielder. But overall, I mean, solid prospect. Not he'll never sniff the top 30, but he'll be in the top maybe 50 prospects in the organization. And probably maybe starts at double A next year after, the year he had overall. I believe it was 7 home runs, and last year he had 14. He was actually really good with the Mets last year in low A. So, guy in high A who's solid.
Yeah, I think it's bench bat ceiling, especially with the positional questionability, which you called out, and it's no power, pretty much. So I think it's probably a more of a ceiling utility guy. Well, not ceiling, but more of a realistic utility player kind of guy that can maybe get some hits off the bench with a decent hit tool. So that's what I'd say for Lara. Got to see him a little bit more. We'll see what happens next season. But with no power and really question marks on, I don't think he's going to stick at short either. I think he's more of like third base, second base. But yeah, no, I think it's more of a guy that they can build up as a utility or super utility guy that can kind of play multiple positions and get some hits off the bench. So that's what I would say for him. Needs to prove a little bit more in terms of the bat to ball skills, like you said, with very little average, but we'll see what happens with that. The walk rates were decent as he came up, so not too terrible. Not too terribly worried about him getting on base. So I think it's good on base ability, but little in the way of average power and positional flex in terms of being able to stick at short, but can probably play other infield spots. So maybe more of a utility bat, in my opinion.
Brock Vradenburg, he was, I believe, the Marlins' 3rd round pick, I want to say, or 4th, in that same draft with Noble Meyer. I mean, it's really just strikeouts and really the lack of power that he's shown for a guy who is 6'6", 230 pounds, only hit 10 home runs and over 500 at bats. So definitely a lot of struggles there. Carver, I'm kind of almost out on him. He's not in their top 30 anymore. I think he only made it once at the beginning, and that was about it. And it's a lot of struggles. He is walking at over 10%. So I guess that's that, but just under the league average in WRC plus in both of his stops. Got off to a really nice start with Beloit, but after that, just nothing real crazy. I think this guy is probably going to repeat the level. Maybe goes to double A really soon.
Yeah, I liked what we saw when he first got called up to Beloit. He, like you said, he walked a little bit more. It looked to be getting a little bit better in terms of his contact rates. But, man, that's what you really look at with this guy is contact rate. And his contact rate is just not good enough. When he makes contact, it can be very good, but he did not make nearly enough contact to excuse his other numbers. So the walk rate coming up is the one intriguing thing. It's first base or DH only. That's all he's ever going to do. He's not going to play anywhere else. So it's very, very little positional flex, and you're relying on one tool, which is power, which he has not shown yet. So hopefully for a guy of this size, it just looks awkward at the plate, dude. It doesn't look smooth. It doesn't look good. He doesn't really control the levers well at the plate, in my opinion. He's going to really need to get under these new player development coaches, especially during spring training and places like that, and even at the full season levels, and really learn how to control his body. That's body control, I think, is it for this guy. It's not there. He needs to really learn body control.